The organ music swelled, a suffocating wave of traditional reverence that felt deeply sacrilegious given the farce unfolding. I stood at the altar, my designer veil heavy, feeling the prickle of 1,000 pairs of eyes. Liam, my fiancé, my betrayer, looked devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit. His eyes, usually warm and reassuring, held a flicker of something calculating, something I'd learned to recognize as panic barely masked by arrogance. The priest was asking the inevitable question, the one that seals the deal, the one I had waited 3 years to hear. Liam, do you take Anya to be your lawfully wedded wife? This was it. The moment I had been planning my revenge around for the past 2 dreadful weeks. I gripped the small, floral bouquet tightly, my knuckles white against the pristine silk ribbon. Inside the folds of the lace, hidden securely against my palm, was my phone, connected to the sound system through a discreet Bluetooth wire I'd taped along my arm. The wire was invisible beneath the layers of satin, but its presence felt like a live nerve ending. I wasn't just standing here to marry him. I was standing here to watch the meticulously constructed life he was trying to build on a foundation of lies crumble into dust. He opened his mouth, and the silence in the enormous cathedral tightened, thick and suffocating. Liam was supposed to say, "I do." But I knew he wouldn't. I knew exactly what he was going to say, and I knew exactly why. My heart hammered, not from nervousness, but from the cold, thrilling clarity of impending war. My best friend, Chloe, stood beaming beside me, playing the role of the maid of honor perfectly, a sickening twist of pure irony. She was just as much a part of this lie as he was. I watched Liam inhale, preparing the words that would publicly destroy me. He cleared his throat. The moment of impact was seconds away. The betrayal hadn't been a sudden event, it was a slow, agonizing realization that started with an overheard phrase and ended with an electronic trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to Chloe. It started 2 weeks ago. I was supposed to be out of town for a work conference, but my flight was delayed and then canceled due to severe weather. I decided to surprise Liam, coming home late that Tuesday night instead of Thursday. The house was dark, but I heard low voices coming from his home office, a place he usually guarded with the paranoia of a vault owner. I crept closer. The door was slightly ajar. I heard Chloe's unmistakable giggle, followed by Liam's sharp, calculating voice. They weren't whispering sweet nothings, they were discussing finances. That's when I heard the phrase that turned my blood to ice. "We just need to wait until the wedding, Anya's inheritance is tied up until the papers are signed." Inheritance? My family's money was supposed to be mine alone, something Liam always insisted he didn't care about. He cared. Desperately. I didn't burst in. That would have been messy, emotional, and ineffective. I slipped back into the shadows, the shock turning into a methodical, frightening focus. I needed evidence that wasn't circumstantial. The next morning, feigning ignorance, I kissed Liam goodbye. Then, I installed highly sensitive recording software on his laptop, linked to a tiny voice-activated mic I discreetly placed inside his favorite desk lamp. I then really left for the work trip. For 72 agonizing hours, I received audio files. The first few were mundane, but the final, hour-long recording confirmed everything: the affair, the financial plot, the plan to dump me the day after the ceremony, having secured access to my trust fund. But they had misread the legal documents. The fund didn't unlock until 6 months after the marriage date. If he dumped me at the altar, they got nothing. Liam had decided to play it safe, cancel the wedding, and blame me for being too controlling, a convenient, cruel escape route. The audio was horrifyingly clear. I listened to Liam and Chloe planning their future vacation, using my money, laughing about how stupid I was to trust them. The worst part wasn't the physical betrayal, it was the mockery, the cold, calculated greed. Liam confessed to Chloe that he only proposed because he knew my father, a successful property developer, had structured my trust fund as a marriage incentive. "It's a 7-figure payday, Chloe, we just have to endure her for a little while," he'd snickered. That was the line that shattered the last fragment of my love. Despair lasted exactly 1 hour. Then the rage took over, cold and sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. I realized I couldn't just walk away and send them the audio in a cease and desist letter. They deserved public exposure, utter humiliation that matched the scale of their planned deception. The wedding, scheduled for the following Saturday, had cost nearly $250,000. Canceling meant losing everything and allowing them to spin the narrative that I was the unstable one. No. We were going through with it. I booked an emergency appointment with my family lawyer, explaining the situation in clinical, emotionless detail, sharing the audio proof. My lawyer, a brilliant, terrifying woman named Eleanor, immediately drafted a non-disclosure agreement disguised as a final vendor payment document, ensuring every key figure involved, the priest, the event coordinator, and the videographer, would be legally bound to silence regarding my plan, only to speak the truth after the event. The plan was set. I spent the last few days smiling, attending the rehearsal dinner, holding Chloe's hand, practicing my breathing. I wasn't a bride, I was an actress playing the lead role in a tragedy I was about to turn into a comedy of errors for two very awful people. The morning of the wedding was a dizzying blur of professional calm. The hairstylist kept praising my composure. "You're the calmest bride I've ever seen, Anya," she chirped. If she only knew the storm brewing beneath my perfect porcelain skin. Chloe arrived with the bridesmaids, bringing a forced cheerfulness that felt like static electricity. She kept touching my dress, straightening my train, her fingers lingering a little too long. I fought the urge to flinch. I felt physically sick interacting with her, knowing that just 48 hours earlier, she was sprawled across Liam's couch, plotting my financial ruin. I had the raw audio files on my phone, and I had also edited the crucial segment, about 4 minutes of uninterrupted, damning confession, into a single, high-quality track. This track was labeled simply, "Speech." Liam texted me a sweet message right before the ceremony. Counting the minutes, my future missus, I deleted the message without replying. When I walked downstairs, ready to leave for the cathedral, my father looked at me with pride mixed with his usual paternal worry. He squeezed my hand. "You look just like your mother on our wedding day, sweetheart." If only he knew that I was about to stage a very public execution of the man he trusted to care for me. My mother cried as she pinned a tiny, antique brooch onto my gown, something blue. As she did, I focused on the barely visible wire running down my arm, the wire that linked my little phone to the massive sound system. It was time for the show to begin. I stepped into the vintage Rolls-Royce, my heart rate steady, ready to deliver my lines. We reached the climax of the ceremony. The priest had finished the introductory sermon about the sanctity of marriage and true love. The air was thick with expectation and the scent of lilies. My vision tunneled onto Liam. He looked genuinely nervous now. Perhaps the gravity of what he was about to do, not marrying me, but publicly rejecting me, was finally sinking in. The priest repeated the question, directing it now at Liam, seeking his vow. "Liam, do you take Anya to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, in sickness and in health, till death do you part?" Liam fidgeted with his collar. His eyes darted toward Chloe, who offered him a subtle, encouraging nod from beside me. A flash of mutual understanding passed between them, a final conspiracy that felt like a punch to my gut. He swallowed hard. The silence stretched for an unbearable 20 seconds. The audience began to murmur. Then, Liam took a deep, theatrical breath. His voice, when it finally came, was loud enough to carry through the massive hall, but laced with faux grief. I can't. The entire cathedral gasped as one. The silence that followed was terrifying, absolute. Liam looked directly at me, projecting deep sadness. Anya, I love you, I truly do. But I cannot do this. We are fundamentally incompatible. I need someone who trusts me, someone who doesn't constantly doubt my motives. He threw the blame onto me, painting himself as the noble, heartbroken victim. Chloe put a hand dramatically over her mouth, fake tears welling up. This was the moment. The audience was reeling, the photographer was scrambling, and Liam thought he had executed his escape perfectly. Before the priest or anyone else could intervene, I gently lifted my hand, the one gripping the bouquet, and adjusted the tiny, almost invisible microphone pinned to my bodice. I gave a small, polite smile to the priest. This was my stage now. The initial shock had been delivered. I need to know, before I reveal my countermove, when someone betrays you this completely, using years of your life and vast amounts of money, is public exposure the right path to justice, or does seeking revenge lower you to their level? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Liam was already turning, preparing his heartbroken exit. He was aiming for pity. But I spoke, my voice calm, clear, and projected perfectly through the professional microphone I was holding, which I had secretly requested the sound guy adjust the sensitivity on earlier that morning. Wait, Liam. Before you make your grand, heartbroken departure, perhaps the guests should hear why you are suddenly finding us incompatible. Liam froze mid-step, his posture shifting from grief to immediate panic. Chloe's head whipped around, her eyes wide. Anya, what are you doing? Don't make a scene, she hissed, the fake tears instantly evaporating. I ignored her, maintaining eye contact with Liam. You claim I don't trust you, and that is absolutely true, I stated simply. But trust isn't a gift, it's earned. And when you attempt to secure access to my inheritance under false pretenses, lying to me for 3 years, trust tends to dissipate. The crowd noise swelled again. My father looked utterly bewildered, my mother looked ready to faint. I raised my hand slightly, signaling to the back of the cathedral where a young technician, Eleanor's assistant, hired for this specific task, was waiting. Liam tried to move toward me, maybe to grab the microphone, but 2 hulking men hired by Eleanor, disguised as caterers, subtly stepped into the aisle, blocking his path without seeming aggressive. Liam, you were right about one thing, I continued, never taking my eyes off his face, which was draining rapidly of color. I did doubt your motives. And when I doubt, I investigate. And I record. I nodded once to the technician. The silence returned, this time heavy with dread. A tiny beep signaled the successful Bluetooth connection. Then, the speakers, the same speakers that moments ago played the Mendelssohn March, began to play the unedited, raw audio of Liam and Chloe's conversation. The recording started immediately, loud and utterly damning. Liam's voice boomed through the sanctuary, "Look, the wedding is Saturday. I'll make a big scene, break it off, blame her trust issues. We save face, avoid the 6-month clause, and frankly, I don't want to be tied to her for that long anyway. The only reason I put up with the family dinners was the money." Chloe's voice, sickeningly sweet, followed, "Are you sure canceling is better than just going through with it? 6 months isn't that long." Liam laughed, a low, cruel sound. "Are you kidding? I'm already getting sick of her controlling nature. And besides, if we break it off now, the legal fees won't bankrupt us, and we can start planning our life together sooner. We have enough to get by until your small trust fund kicks in, and then we wait for the next rich idiot to cross my path." Anya was just the most convenient mark. The sound of their intertwined laughter filled the sacred space. The crowd's reaction wasn't just gasps, it was a cacophony of outrage and horror. My mother was openly weeping, but my father, his face stern, took a step toward the altar, ready to defend me. Liam was yelling now, trying to drown out the recording. "Anya! Turn that off. That's fake. This is insane." Chloe stood frozen, her eyes wide and wet with genuine fear this time. The recording continued, Chloe discussing which expensive car she wanted to buy with my supposed trust fund money. The final blow came when Liam explicitly stated he had never loved me and had been sleeping with Chloe since the engagement party. I let the tape run its course, every calculated word driving a nail into their coffins. When the audio finally cut out, the silence was overwhelming, broken only by Chloe's ragged sob. The ensuing chaos was volcanic. Liam finally broke free of the unseen guards and lunged for me, his composure utterly gone, his face twisted in pure, animal fury. "You absolute psycho! You recorded me?" Before he could reach me, my father, usually reserved and diplomatic, stepped forward and slammed his open palm into Liam's chest, sending him stumbling backward toward the aisle. "Don't you dare touch my daughter," my father roared, his voice shaking the chandeliers. The priest, finally finding his voice, was calling for order, demanding the police be called. I held up my hand, stopping the commotion near me. "There is no need for police intervention, Father. This man simply attempted to commit marriage fraud and theft in a public forum." Chloe was now desperately trying to melt into the backdrop of the floral arrangement. She kept whispering, "This isn't fair, Liam, this isn't fair." I stepped away from the altar, carefully avoiding her gaze, and walked toward the first row of guests. I looked directly at Liam's parents, who were staring at their son in disbelief and shame. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "I apologize for the loss of your reputation, but know that I have instructed Eleanor to release this audio to the local media outlets by 4 p.m. this afternoon. Liam's attempt to paint me as an unstable woman will be utterly neutralized." Liam began frantically patting his pockets, looking for his own phone, probably to call a lawyer, but his best man, thoroughly disgusted, had already confiscated it. The karmic reaction was immediate and absolute. I had ensured the financial and professional repercussions were already in motion before I ever walked down that aisle. Eleanor had worked miracles. Because Liam had publicly, verbally broken the engagement while confessing to fraudulent intent, captured on the cathedral's own internal recording system, which I also secured access to, the massive non-refundable deposit for the venue, the catering, and the honeymoon was legally classified as damages owed to me due to the breach of contract. Liam and his parents were now liable for the full amount, a massive six-figure debt. Liam, who worked as a financial advisor, relied heavily on his public image of trustworthiness. Eleanor had also arranged for the audio to be anonymously sent not only to the major news outlets but directly to the CEO of his investment firm, along with a summary of the financial fraud he admitted to attempting. By the time I removed my veil in the bridal room, which was ironically much calmer than the sanctuary, the news reports had started trickling in. The headlines were savage: "Groom dumps bride, exposed as gold digger." I didn't revel in the cruelty. I felt a strange, detached satisfaction. The money was just money, but the truth, the public, irreversible truth, was my real prize. Chloe, I later heard, was immediately fired from her job as a marketing assistant, as her company didn't want the taint of association. The destruction was comprehensive and swift, exactly as planned. My father came into the room then, his eyes still fierce but brimming with love. He hugged me tightly. "I am so sorry, sweetheart. But I am so proud of your strength. I didn't marry that day, but I gained something far more valuable than a husband, my freedom and my self-respect. We converted the disastrous wedding reception into a rather awkward, though supportive, family and close friends dinner party. The expensive champagne was still popped, but this time, we toasted to honesty and new beginnings, not false vows. Liam tried to contact me multiple times over the following weeks, attempting to plead, threaten, and finally, beg. I never answered. He lost his job, his professional licenses were under review, and his reputation in the city was irreparably damaged. Chloe left town shortly thereafter, unable to face the constant scorn. Their intended future of luxury collapsed before it ever began, replaced by shame and debt. The last I heard, they were living in separate states, their greedy partnership dissolving under the weight of financial ruin and mutual blame. They got exactly what they deserved. The karmic ending was complete. As for me, I sold the extravagant wedding dress, donated the proceeds to a women's financial literacy charity, and took the planned honeymoon trip to the Maldives alone, a true celebratory trip for myself. The experience taught me a profound lesson: never confuse presentation with reality, and always be prepared to fight for your own truth, even if it means destroying a perfect wedding facade. My heart is healing, stronger and smarter than before. I am no longer Anya, the heartbroken bride. I am Anya, the woman who took back her narrative. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this, please subscribe to the channel Dramatic Zone, leave a like, and write in the comments which country you are from. Stay tuned, there will be a new story tomorrow.